The deep hum of machinery filled the small research station as Jack Miller stared at his monitor screen. Outside the reinforced windows, stars sparkled against the endless black of space. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 3 years ago, and already humans were pushing the boundaries of known space. Jack ran his hand through his messy brown hair and squinted at the unusual energy readings on his screen. Something wasn't right. The pattern pulsed in a way he had never seen before, coming from an unexplored sector just beyond the station's normal scanning range. "Computer, can you clean up that signal?" he asked, reaching for his coffee mug. The bitter liquid had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed as he took a sip. The computer beeped, and the pattern became clearer. A loud chime interrupted his thoughts. The station's main communication screen lit up with the stern face of Council Representative Davis, a man Jack had come to dislike for his rigid thinking. "Station ES7, this is an urgent warning," Davis said, his voice tight with concern. "Your scans have detected activity in Sector 447. You are to cease all observation of that sector immediately." Jack frowned. "Sir, with all due respect, we're picking up some fascinating energy patterns. They could be." "That sector is strictly forbidden," Davis cut him off. "It's home to the Shadow Claws." He spat the name like a curse. Jack's heart beat faster. Everyone knew about the Shadow Claws. They were the bogeymen of the galaxy, apex predators that had supposedly destroyed entire civilizations. But in 3 years of studying alien species, Jack had learned that reality was rarely as simple as the stories made it seem. "The Shadow Claws haven't been seen in that sector for decades," Jack argued. "And these readings are none of your concern," Davis snapped. "The Council has contained those monsters for a reason. They are pure killing machines, without intelligence or mercy. Your station will maintain its distance or face serious consequences. Is that clear?" Jack nodded stiffly, but his mind was already racing. After Davis's image vanished, he pulled up everything he could find about Sector 447. The official reports were full of holes, and the data didn't add up. As he dug deeper into his research, a new alert flashed on his screen. The energy pattern had changed. Now it pulsed in a regular rhythm that made his skin tingle. "Computer, analyze this pattern against known communication frequencies." The computer hummed for a moment before displaying its results. Jack's eyes widened. The pattern matched the basic structure of a distress signal. He sat back in his chair, mind spinning with possibilities. If this was a distress signal, someone needed help. But if it came from the Shadow Claws, he thought of all the warnings, all the stories of devastation and death. Then he thought of how many times humans had been underestimated when they first joined the galactic community. How many times other species had called them primitive or dangerous, simply because they didn't understand them. The signal pulsed again, weaker this time. Jack made his decision. He stood up and grabbed his research kit, loading it with basic medical supplies and scanning equipment. The station's small research vessel wasn't much, but it would get him to the source of the signal. As he prepared for launch, he recorded a message for the station's logs. "This is xenobiologist Jack Miller. I'm investigating a potential distress signal in Sector 447. If the Council's warnings are right, this might be my last log entry. But something about this doesn't add up, and I can't ignore someone who might need help, even if everyone else has." The small ship detached from the station with a gentle shudder. As the engines powered up, Jack took one last look at the safety of his station. Then he turned toward the forbidden sector, where the mysterious signal grew stronger with each passing moment. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about its most feared predators. And in doing so, he would remind everyone of humanity's greatest strength: the ability to see past fear and reach out to those in need. The small research vessel shuddered as it entered Sector 447. Jack's hands were steady on the controls, but his heart pounded in his chest. The distress signal grew stronger, leading him toward a dense field of space debris. Old ships and broken machines floated silently in the darkness. Jack carefully steered between the ruins, his ship's lights catching glimpses of ancient battles. Some of the wreckage looked hundreds of years old. "Computer, can you locate the exact source of the signal?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. A red dot appeared on his navigation screen, pointing to a massive piece of twisted metal that might once have been a cargo ship. As Jack brought his vessel closer, his scanners picked up something else. Life signs, but they were unlike anything he had ever seen before. The readings were off the charts. "That's impossible," he muttered, checking the numbers again. Whatever was alive in that wreck was using more energy than a small city. Jack docked his ship against the ancient wreckage. The connection wasn't perfect, but it would hold. He put on his spacesuit, checked his oxygen levels, and grabbed his medical kit. His hand shook slightly as he sealed his helmet. "This is either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever done," he said to himself, stepping into the airlock. "Probably both." The old ship's corridor was dark and cold. Jack's suit lights cast long shadows as he made his way deeper into the wreck, following his scanner's guidance. The air was thin but breathable. The ship's ancient life support systems were still partially working. Then he heard it, a low rumble that made the metal floor vibrate beneath his feet. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. Jack turned a corner and froze. In a large cargo hold, tangled in twisted metal and sparking wires, was a creature straight out of humanity's darkest nightmares. The Shadow Claw was enormous. Its black scales seemed to absorb light, and razor-sharp claws longer than Jack's arm gripped the metal floor. A long tail wrapped around a broken support beam, and multiple eyes glowed with an inner light. The creature was easily 4 times Jack's size. But what caught Jack's attention wasn't its frightening appearance. It was the pain in those glowing eyes, and the way it was trying to free itself from a piece of metal that had pierced its side. The Shadow Claw saw him. Those eyes locked onto Jack, and he felt something brush against his mind. A mixture of fear, pain, and surprise. Jack expected to die in that moment. Every story, every warning said these creatures killed without hesitation. Instead, the Shadow Claw went still, watching him with what looked like curiosity. Slowly, carefully, Jack held up his medical kit. I got your signal," he said, knowing the creature probably couldn't understand his words. "I want to help." The Shadow Claw's eyes narrowed. Then, to Jack's amazement, it slowly lowered its head. Another feeling brushed his mind. Cautious hope. Jack took a careful step forward. When the creature didn't react, he took another. "I'm going to check your wound now," he said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Try not to eat me, okay?" Was it his imagination, or did the Shadow Claw make a sound that almost seemed like a laugh? The wound was bad, but nothing like the advanced biology he had expected. The creature's blood was similar to Earth's copper-based sea creatures, and its tissue structure was complex, but not incomprehensible. As Jack worked to stop the bleeding, he felt the Shadow Claw's mind touch his again. Images flowed into his thoughts, stars, distant worlds, and a feeling of gratitude that needed no translation. "You're welcome," Jack said softly, applying a seal patch to the wound. "Though we're going to have a hard time explaining this to the Council." The Shadow Claw rumbled again, and this time Jack was sure it was laughing. As he continued his work, he realized that everything he thought he knew about these creatures was wrong. They weren't mindless killers. They were intelligent, emotional beings, and he had just become the first human to ever treat one as such. The next few hours changed everything Jack thought he knew about the Shadow Claws. As he finished treating the creature's wounds, their mental connection grew stronger. The Shadow Claw, who shared an image of storms and stars that Jack took as its name, began showing him memories. Jack sat cross-legged on the metal floor, his spacesuit partially removed now that he knew the air was safe. Storm, as he called his new friend, curled in a more comfortable position, those intelligent eyes fixed on him. Through their mental link, images flowed like water. Jack saw great cities that sparkled like diamonds among the stars. He saw shadow claws creating art with light and shadow, their claws moving with surprising gentleness to shape beautiful things. He watched them study the cosmos and build ships that could cross galaxies. "Your people weren't always hunters," Jack said quietly. "You were explorers, scientists, artists." Storm's reply came as a mixture of images and emotions. Jack saw ships arriving at Shadowclaw worlds, ships from the older races of the Galactic Council. He felt the fear and confusion as Council scientists captured Shadowclaws for study, treating them like animals. "They experimented on you," Jack whispered, horror growing in his chest. "They didn't try to communicate at all, did they? They just assumed you were beasts." More images came. Shadowclaws fighting back, using their natural abilities to defend themselves. Their weapons were their bodies, claws that could cut through metal, scales that absorbed energy, minds that could reach across space. The Council called them monsters for fighting back, spread stories about them being mindless killers. Storm showed him how the Shadowclaws were forced to hide, to run, to fight. Their beautiful cities were destroyed. Their art was lost. They became what everyone feared them to be, just to survive. "But you still have your culture," Jack said, noticing how Storm's memories held on to songs made of starlight and stories written in the spaces between worlds. "You kept it alive all this time." Storm's reply was warm with approval. An image formed in Jack's mind. Scattered groups of Shadowclaws, hidden in the darkest parts of space, keeping their true nature secret, teaching their children about art and science while the galaxy hunted them. "How many of you are left?" Jack asked. The answer came as a feeling of deep sadness. "Not many. Perhaps a few hundred, spread across the galaxy in small groups." Storm's own family group was waiting in a nearby system, worried about their missing member. Jack stood up, his decision made. "We need to tell people the truth. Humans, we know what it's like to be underestimated. When we first joined the Council, everyone thought we were too primitive to matter, but we proved them wrong." Storm's mind touched his with a question. Jack felt the creature's doubt, its fear of trusting another species after so much pain. "I know it's risky," Jack said, "but humans are different. We're curious, adaptable, and most importantly, we know how to learn from past mistakes, our own and others." He smiled. "Besides, I've already broken about 50 council laws just by being here. Might as well break a few more for a good cause." Storm made a rumbling sound that Jack now recognized as laughter. The creature's mind shared images of hope, a future where Shadowclaws could live openly again, where their children could create art among the stars without fear. "First," Jack said, checking his medical scanner one last time, "we need to get you somewhere safe to finish healing. My research station isn't far. The other scientists there, they're good people. They'll listen." Storm's tail moved, carefully helping Jack gather his medical supplies. The gesture was so thoughtful, so unlike the monster everyone believed Shadowclaws to be, that Jack had to smile. "You know," he said, "the Council is going to be very unhappy about this. A human and a Shadowclaw, working together. They won't know what to do." Storm's mental reply was clear. That was exactly the point. Sometimes the galaxy needed to be reminded that its oldest fears might be its greatest mistakes. Over the next few days, Jack worked to heal Storm's wounds in the quiet of the abandoned ship. He was amazed by how quickly the Shadowclaw's body repaired itself. What should have been deadly injuries were already closing up, leaving dark patches on Storm's scales that sparkled like the night sky. "Your healing ability is incredible," Jack said, scanning the largest wound with his medical device. "No wonder the Council wanted to study your species, but they went about it all wrong." Storm's mind touched his, sharing memories of how Shadowclaws had once used their healing powers to help other species. In the past, they had been healers, not hunters. Their ability to regenerate had made them natural doctors for the galaxy's most dangerous injuries. Jack had created a simple sign language for things that were hard to share through mental images. He held up his hand, fingers spread wide, their signal for questions. "Can you teach me more about your healing abilities?" Storm's response came both in mental images and careful movements. The great creature extended one clawed hand, showing Jack how their scales could change color to absorb or reflect different types of energy. This ability helped them heal and could even be shared with others. "That's amazing," Jack said, making notes on his tablet. "Your entire biology is based on energy manipulation. You're not just surviving out here in space, you're thriving in it." As they worked together, Jack noticed how gracefully Storm moved despite his massive size. Those deadly claws could handle delicate equipment with perfect care. The same tail that could crush metal now helped steady Jack when he needed to reach higher places. They developed a routine. Every few hours, Jack changed Storm's bandages, while Storm taught him about Shadowclaw culture. They created new hand signals together, mixing human gestures with Shadowclaw movements. Soon they had their own unique language, a bridge between their species. "Look at this," Jack said one day, showing Storm his tablet. "Your wound is healing in a pattern I'd never seen before. The cells are reorganizing themselves using the energy around them." He grinned. "You're literally healing with starlight." Storm's pleasure at Jack's understanding flowed through their mental link. The Shadowclaw carefully picked up the tablet with two claws, adding information in a series of symbols they had created together. The symbols explained how Shadowclaws used different types of energy for different types of healing. "We're going to change how everyone thinks about your species," Jack said firmly. "Humans understand what it's like to be judged too quickly. When we first joined the council, they thought we were too primitive because we hadn't mastered faster-than-light travel. But then we surprised them by solving problems in ways they never considered." Storm's mind shared images of humans and Shadowclaws working together, healing instead of hurting. The hope in those images was so strong it made Jack's eyes water. Jack reached out and placed his hand on Storm's scaled arm, something that would have terrified him just days ago. Now it felt as natural as breathing. "You know what's funny? The council thinks humans are too trusting, too ready to make friends with dangerous things. They don't understand that's our strength." Storm's mental touch carried amusement. The Shadowclaw carefully raised its massive head and touched its forehead to Jack's, a gesture of trust among their kind. The mental image that followed showed Jack as Storm saw him. Small but brave, curious without being foolish, kind without being weak. "Together," Jack said, "we're going to show them what trust and friendship can really do. A human scientist and a Shadowclaw healer. We'll rewrite the galaxy's story about both our species." Storm's scales rippled with colors that Jack now knew meant agreement and hope. As they returned to their work, Jack realized something important. He was no longer just helping an injured creature. He was working with a friend to heal centuries of misunderstanding. The research station's warning alarms blared as Jack's ship requested emergency docking. He looked at Storm, who was cramped in the small cargo hold. "Ready for this?" Storm's mental touch carried both nervousness and determination. They had planned this carefully, but everything would depend on these first few minutes. As the airlock opened, Jack stepped out first. "Don't shoot," he shouted to the security team that waited with raised weapons. "I can explain everything." Dr. Anna West, the station's head scientist, stepped forward. Her face was pale but steady. "Jack, our scanners show you have a Class 1 threat aboard, a Shadowclaw. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking we've all been lied to," Jack said firmly. "Storm, come out slowly. Show them what I learned." The security team gasped as Storm emerged. Even folded down to appear smaller, the Shadowclaw was an impressive sight. But instead of attacking, Storm simply sat back and lifted one clawed hand in a very human gesture of peace. "It's waving at us," Dr. West whispered. "Storm is intelligent, Anna. More than that, the Shadowclaws are an advanced species who were wrongly labeled as monsters." Jack stepped closer to Storm. showing his lack of fear. They have art, science, culture, and I can prove it. Over the next hour, in the station's main lab, Jack and Storm showed the amazed scientists everything they had learned. Storm demonstrated their mental communication, shared images of Shadowclaw civilization, and even helped Dr. West understand some old data that had puzzled her for months. "This is incredible," Dr. West said, studying the readings from Storm's healing wounds. "Their cellular structure, it's not just advanced, it's adaptable in ways we never imagined." "And you say they used to be healers?" "Yes," Jack replied. "But that's not all we discovered." He pulled up some files he'd found in the wrecked ship's database. "Look at this. The Council didn't just hunt them. They've been using Shadowclaw biology to create weapons." The screens filled with images of secret Council facilities. They showed captured Shadowclaws being studied, their abilities being copied into terrible weapons. The dates on the files showed this was still happening. "They're not monsters," Dr. West said slowly. "We are. Or at least, the Council is." She looked at Storm with new eyes. "How many of your people are left?" Storm's answer, shared through their mental link and translated by Jack, made everyone in the room fall silent. Less than 500 Shadowclaws remained, hiding in the darkness of space. "We have to help them," said Tom, one of the younger scientists. "This isn't right. Humans know what it's like to be underestimated, to be treated as less than we are." "The Council will try to stop us," Dr. West warned. "They'll say we're being foolish, that we're too young a species to understand the danger." Jack smiled. "Actually, I think that's exactly why we have to do this. We're young enough to question old fears, smart enough to see past lies, and stubborn enough to stand up for what's right." Storm moved carefully through the lab, respectfully examining the equipment. The scientists watched in wonder as those massive claws delicately picked up a small scanner, studying it with obvious curiosity. "The Council is wrong about both our species," Jack said. "They think humans are too trusting, too ready to make friends with dangerous things. They think Shadowclaws are mindless killers. Let's prove them wrong about both." Dr. West stood up straighter. "We'll need to contact Earth's government, share what we've learned. The Council won't like it," but she smiled as Storm helped steady a wobbling piece of equipment. "I think it's time for the galaxy to learn some new truths about old enemies." The alarm suddenly blared again. On the main screen, a Council ship appeared, moving fast toward the station. "Well," Jack said, looking at his human and Shadowclaw friends, "looks like we'll be sharing those truths sooner than we planned." The Council ship's commander appeared on the main screen, his face stern and cold. "Research Station ES-7, this is Commander Reed. Our scanners detect a Class 1 threat aboard your station. You will surrender the Shadowclaw immediately." Jack stood in front of Storm, while Dr. West took charge of the response. "Commander, we have made some remarkable discoveries. The Shadowclaws are not what we thought. If you'll just let us explain." "You are all under the influence of the creature," Reed interrupted. "Shadowclaws have mental powers that can fool lesser species. Your station is now under Council control." Storm's mental touch reached Jack, sharing memories of similar moments. How many times the Council had refused to listen, had chosen fear over understanding. But this time was different. This time, they had human allies. "We are not under any influence," Jack said firmly. "Storm has shown us the truth. We have proof that the Council has been experimenting on Shadowclaws, using their biology to make weapons. You're the ones who turned them into enemies." The commander's face darkened. "Miller, you are hereby stripped of your research license. Dr. West, you and your team have 1 hour to evacuate the station. We will then remove the threat by any means necessary." As the screen went dark, Dr. West turned to her team. "We need to make a choice. Right now. If we stand with Storm, we risk everything. Our careers, maybe even Earth's standing with the Council." Tom, the young scientist, stepped forward. "They can't just bury the truth. We have proof of what they did. The Council controls most of the galaxy's communication networks, Anna said quietly. They can bury anything they want. That's how they hid the truth about the Shadow Claws for so long. Jack felt Storm's mind touch his, sharing not fear but a deep sadness. The Shadow Claw was ready to surrender, to die if necessary, to protect these humans who had shown such kindness. No, Jack said aloud, responding to Storm's thoughts. We're not giving up. Humans have a long history of standing up to bullies, even when we're outgunned. He turned to his colleagues. But I won't ask any of you to risk your futures for this. Storm and I can try to escape in my research vessel. One by one, the station's crew members stepped forward. I'm staying, Dr. West said. The Council needs to learn that humans don't abandon our friends. Me too, Tom added. They think we're too young and foolish to understand. Let's show them what human foolishness can do. Others joined in, until the entire crew had chosen to stay. Storm's scales rippled with colors of emotion, gratitude, hope, and something like pride. Jack quickly outlined their plan. We need to contact Earth directly, bypass the Council's networks. Anna, can you get a message through? Already trying, she said, fingers flying over her console. But the Council ship is blocking most channels. Suddenly, Storm's mind touched them all, sharing an idea. The Shadow Claw could use their natural ability to absorb and redirect energy to create a gap in the Council ship's jamming field. It'll take too much power, Jack protested, understanding Storm's plan. You're still healing. Storm's response was firm. Through their mental link, they shared an image of stars scattered across space. Other Shadow Claws hiding in the darkness. This was a chance to help all of them, to finally end centuries of running and hiding. Our power systems can help, Tom said, catching on. If we redirect energy from the station's shields, we'll be defenseless, Dr. West warned. Jack looked at his fellow humans, then at Storm. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all. Besides, when has humanity ever let common sense stop us from doing what's right? Storm's mental laughter touched them all. As they rushed to put their plan into action, the Council ship moved closer, its weapons charging. The next few minutes would change everything. For humanity, for the Shadow Claws, and for the entire galaxy's understanding of trust and friendship. The research station hummed with diverted power as Storm prepared for their most important task. The Council ship loomed outside, weapons ready, while Commander Reed's voice boomed through the communication system. This is your final warning. Surrender the creature, or we will open fire. Jack stood beside Storm, watching as the Shadow Claw's scales began to glow with absorbed energy. Dr. West and her team worked frantically at their stations, redirecting every spare bit of power they could find. Message ready, Tom called out. But we'll only have a few seconds to transmit once Storm creates the gap. Through their mental link, Storm showed Jack what was about to happen. The Shadow Claw would use their healing ability in reverse. Instead of absorbing energy to heal, they would release it all at once, creating a massive burst that would briefly overwhelm the Council's jamming systems. It's too dangerous, Jack protested again. You're not fully healed. Storm's response was simple, an image of freedom, of Shadow Claws and humans working together in peace. Some things were worth the risk. The Council ship fired a warning shot that rocked the station. Alarms blared as shields dropped to critical levels. Now or never, Dr. West said. Storm rose to their full height, scales blazing with stored energy. Through their mental link, all the humans felt a single thought. Friendship is the greatest power in the galaxy. The Shadow Claw released everything at once. Light exploded from Storm's body, so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. The Council ship's jamming field flickered and died. Transmitting, Tom shouted. Their message shot out across space, not just their evidence about the Council's crimes, but recordings of Storm's memories, proof of Shadow Claw intelligence and culture, and the story of how humans had chosen to stand with them. Storm collapsed, their scales dim. Jack rushed to their side, medical scanner already working. "They're weak, but alive," he announced, relief clear in his voice. The council ship prepared to fire again, but suddenly stopped. New voices filled the communication channels as Earth's government responded to their message. "Council ship, stand down immediately," came a firm voice. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have received the research station's transmission and are deploying ships to their location." Commander Reed's voice shook with anger. "You don't understand what you're protecting." "We understand perfectly," the Admiral interrupted. "We understand that the Council has been hunting an intelligent species to extinction. We understand that our scientists have discovered the truth. And we understand that humanity will not stand by and watch this happen." Over the next few hours, more ships arrived, not just from Earth, but from other younger species who had received their transmission. Species who, like humanity, hadn't been part of the Council long enough to accept their lies without question. 1 month later, Jack stood with Storm in front of the new Interspecies Understanding Center on Earth. The building was designed to accommodate both humans and Shadowclaws, with spaces for art, science, and healing. "Hard to believe how much has changed," Jack said, watching as a young Shadowclaw carefully showed a group of human children how to create art with light and shadow. More Shadowclaws had emerged from hiding, finding sanctuary on Earth and other welcoming worlds. Storm's mental touch carried joy and pride. Through their link, they shared an image of the future, humans and Shadowclaws exploring space together, learning from each other, healing ancient wounds. The Council was changing too, forced to confront its past mistakes. Other species that had been misunderstood or feared were coming forward, finding hope in what humans and Shadowclaws had achieved together. "You know what the funny thing is?" Jack said, smiling as he watched more visitors arrive at the center. "Everyone thought humans were too trusting, too ready to make friends with dangerous things. They thought that would be our weakness." Storm's scales rippled with color, their version of laughter. Through their mental link, they shared the truth they had both learned. Sometimes the things we fear most are the things we most need to understand. And sometimes the greatest strength lies not in fighting monsters, but in seeing that they were never monsters at all.